2 years ago, I spent my last dollars and even begged my mom to help me pay for iman gadzhis course. And here's exactly what actually happened. And I could start off just by prefacing this that it's so easy to see videos around online saying iman is a scam, courses are a scam, all these different things. And this is going to be a true story from my actual experience of joining a course and joining a program when I was 17 years old. So this all started in November of 2022, and I was, as you can see in these photos, a young kid, right? I was lost, directionless. I had no idea what I was doing, but to be super honest, as I grew up, I always had this internal feeling that I was always destined for more. It's something that I've never been able to explain, something indescribable, but I always knew I was destined for success. I just didn't really know how I was going to get there, right? And I had zero idea about anything with business. I just knew that I had something in me that I was, it sounds like a little bit ego driven or any of these different things, but I knew that I was going to be successful. And that is essentially when I came across Iman, like I said, just around this time here inside of November of 2022, right? And with this, funny enough, I saw his videos on YouTube and I was like, holy shit, I've never seen anything like this before. A young guy essentially living the life that I wanted to live, building skills, documenting his journey, make plenty of money online and stuff. And that's when he actually, funny enough, started an event called the Digital Renaissance, which, to make a long story short, absolutely grabbed me and caught me really with giving me the idea like, hey, I can really do this and I can have a life just like Iman as well. So essentially, if I'm going through the process, I remember this key moment of actually watching the video he actually put together explaining how to build freedom through SMMA. And I was in the car and I showed my mom, and I will never forget this. I told her, I feel like this can change my life. And funny enough, I saw the price tag. It was pretty much around $1,000. I had no money at the time. Um, and I was scared, nervous, didn't know what I was going to do. But essentially, I begged my mom to help me actually pay for this. And I made a promise to her that I will actually pay her back one day. So, of course, she was a little bit hesitant and all of these different things. But I actually got her to help me out with actually investing in that program. And after joining, the dopamine did act as enough. And I'll get into the explanation of what exactly this means, but this entire new beginning phase went from November of 2022 all the way to not even December. This will go all the way actually to February of 2024. And I know you probably hear like that is a long fucking time. What happened in between? And that's exactly what I'll actually get into with this entire timeline right here. Right? So across this point, when I say the dopamine actually felt like enough, after joining, I was like, holy shit, I made an investment. I made a change within myself. I made this choice, and now, I'll be successful. Right? So I ended up going through, some of the modules and stuff like that casually, and it felt like enough, just making the investment that, I made a change. But in reality, I wasn't doing any real work. And I even started to develop this level of avoidance and like this feeling that I'd stray away from work that I knew that I should be doing. Right. And I'll just go through the modules casually and stuff like that. And fast forward a couple months, it got to the point where, just on this casual thing of watching, the calls inside, watching the videos, feeling like I was just learning. And I did end up graduating high school and realized that I didn't really make any progress or any real results, although I've learned, a few things. And after graduating, that is when I actually made a decision to take a gap year. I figured, hey, I was in school, I had all these things going on. If I take a gap year and take this risk on myself, this will be something that can change my life, and I'll actually have the time to put towards it now that I don't have school or really anything else actually coming up. And essentially that was that second half of 2023. And with that, I ended up working a 9 to 5 job. And that's when reality actually really fucking hit me like a truck, to be super honest with you. And I was working the job, putting time into the agency, which at least felt like I was. And in reality, I was just doing a bunch of mental masturbation, right? So things that felt like work that weren't actually work, right? So, I'd watch the videos, the modules casually and stuff like that. And then I started getting into things like building websites, designing my logo, choosing my brand name, my idea, my visions for like this business and all these different things. And as time actually went on, the months would actually go by, which turned into a year, this deep feeling of avoidance for work actually started to intensify and turn into really this haunting feeling, because I knew I had to be doing the actual work, the actual outreach, the things that will actually make me money and actually see real results. And I was consciously, I want to say subconsciously, but I was consciously avoiding actually doing these things, and I couldn't pinpoint on why. And it started to turn into this big thing that I'd honestly think about 24/7. Like when I tell you 24/7, every single moment of my day, I started to develop this huge level of anxiety and this thought just chewing at the back of my mind, saying that, hey, I should be doing work right now. I know what I need to do. I just need to fucking do it. And in reality, I never was able to get to it and actually take the action. It sounds like it's something super simple, right? But this thing started to haunt me. I was like, why can't I do the work? I know what I have to be doing. Why couldn't I do it? And it eventually led me to really this breaking point moment, which was essentially within December of 2023. I remember coming in and just sitting down here in my room, and it got so bad to a point that, like I said, before I go to bed, throughout the day, when I wake up, every single moment I was not present and I was just thinking about this. I was avoiding doing the work that I should have. And this lasted for months, even that entire year. And I had this breakdown moment in December where I honestly just sat down in my room and I just cried. I was so frustrated with myself and I didn't know why. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't know why I couldn't just do the work. I didn't know why I couldn't just commit to doing what I know would help me get to where I actually wanted to be. And I started sobbing. And funny enough, I grabbed this exact notebook, not knowing what I was going to do. And I ended up just writing. And I ended up writing my 2024 goals, right? And I wrote here, the hardest working year of my life. And this was Thursday, December 28th of 2023. And I wrote, I will make $6,000 per month. I will learn a valuable skill. I will pay back my mom the $1,000 that she actually gave me. I will build my dream physique, quit my job / drop out of school if I did have to go, get closer to God, help people, and be present. And to be honest, even looking back at this, I had no fucking idea how I was going to achieve any of these things. I never made anywhere near close to $6,000 a month before. Like I said, I was making around $500 to $600 a week. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know what exactly I was going to do. I just felt so lost at such a breaking desperation point that being able to write something like this honestly just temporarily relieved my anxiety, right? And that does take us into this next part, which I do like to call really my breaking point, right? So after writing this down, funny enough, I did for the next month or two continue on, really intensify the work I was doing, but it was still essentially the mental masturbation, building out the websites, starting to, call up people a little bit, but not really fully committing, to be super honest. And that's when I actually got this message from my success coach when I actually first joined the program. And as you can see here, he asked me such a simple question, which was, how's business going, man? And after reading that, I felt a little bit scared. I was like, fuck, dude, I haven't really done anything, especially after reading this, making me realizing it more. And as you can see, as I wrote there, honestly, bro, being completely transparent, I've been procrastinating and avoiding outreach, and it disgusts me. When it comes to the gym and my diet, my discipline is so locked down. But when it actually comes to this, which was building the business, I subconsciously avoid it. And I know I have it in me, and it's the only thing on my mind. pretty much 24/7. And of course, I didn't explain to him the gravity of how this actually felt. And he told me something so fucking simple that you can see here. And to be super honest, it's not something I realized in the moment, but this is likely a message that changed the trajectory of my life. And it's something that I knew, right? But being able to read it and have it come from somebody externally, not sure why, it had an internal shift on me, right? And as you can see there, he honestly just told me the magic lies in the work that you are avoiding. And when I say I had this internal realization, it wasn't just this realization of I need to get to fucking work. I am choosing every single day to live in the same cycle by not taking action. I also had this realization that I was trying to build this business and learn all these skills and try to get clients without really knowing what I was fucking doing, right? I had the modules and stuff like that, but I did not fully understand how I was actually going to help my clients. And essentially I was trying to build a business without any real skill. And it's kind of like having this bucket, right? So let's say you have this bucket right here, and this is all the things you're trying to put in to build a business, right? So you could have a course here, within here, and we could just say this is water, right? You have a course coming in here, you have hard work going in, outreach, you trying to get clients, all these different things, right? But inside of this bucket, you have this huge hole, right? So it doesn't matter how much water you actually pour in this bucket, this water will continue to pour out if you have a hole, which in my case was not having any skill set. I was building a business without knowing what I was actually doing, without having any skill, and just watching a couple of videos in a module. And that huge realization honestly really got me to the point. And of course, in Iman's courses and programs, they taught different things, right, with the goal of actually teaching you how to have an agency. But it made me realize it's like I need to take a step back, and before I can actually start my own business, I need to be able to develop a skill. And funny enough, that's when I started to lean into sales, right? And it was something that they were teaching in there. And before I'm sure you hear sales and probably think, oh, what the fuck, dude, I would never be in sales. And I was the same exact way. But after jumping on some of these coaching calls with, the coaches in here, it's something I never would have thought I would have done. But I realized by choosing to take this on as a venture, really learning how to communicate, have tough conversations, and put myself into that pressure, it's going to allow me to grow and become the person that I need to be. So within here, to make a long story short, I ended up pestering one of the coaches inside of Iman's program to ask him a bunch of random questions on how I can get into sales and how I could learn it and all these different things. And he didn't respond to me at all. And it took me essentially probably around 2 to 3 weeks of sending him GIFs every single day, waiting on a response. And that's when he shot me a text saying, hey man, I'm making this community called World Class Sales. It's starting next week. So I'll let you know, man, you could join it and I'll actually help you within there. So to make a long story short, I ended up joining, and that does take us to where we're currently at, which is what I like to call the rebirth, or we could call it the breakthrough, right? And as you can see in this screenshot, this last month in October of 2025, or essentially September, I've made the most amount of money that I ever have, right? One thing that felt once impossible to ever do. I made $10,000 in a month. And it brings me back to looking at this notebook again when I felt super lost, anxious, didn't know how I was going to achieve anything. At the end of 2024, I actually checked off every single one of these goals, right? So by actually getting close to that coach, his name was JJ, he actually became one of my best friends and really one of my first ever mentors who actually helped me and taught me sales and how to actually get into the space and really how to even start making money online. So at the end of 2024, I got to the point where I've made $6,000 in a month. So I checked that off. I've started to learn a valuable skill. I got to the point where I was blessed enough to pay back my mom that $1,000. And funny enough, I ended up quitting my 9 to 5 when I first started in sales. After my first 2 months of being inside, I was already making more money than I was in my actual job, and I was afraid and stuff, but I did make the jump because I knew it would get me closer to where I wanted to be. I got closer to God. I was able to help other people. And just being able to reflect back on this moment that I had at the end of 2024 and looking back at this moment where I was like, wow, I had all these different anxieties, all these different fears, and I really, from having that trust in myself, I actually, figured it out to a degree. I hit all those goals without knowing how I was going to do it. And now we could look at where I am currently at, like as you can see here, like just a little bit shy of 10,000, just $9,925 at the ending of September, and the invoices hit in October. That's why it says it. I've actually been able to travel the world with some of my best friends, and these guys, funny enough, are also coaches, and they were coaches in Iman's program. We have Scott Brunning. This guy makes well over 30 to 40K a month. One of my mentors right now, Cole, making same amount, multiple 6 figures a year through sales, and now they're scaling teams and doing all these different things. And I've had the freedom and had the ability to travel the world, go to places like India, Brazil. I just bought tickets to Australia for like next week, super spontaneous, all these different things, but it really just felt like a huge reflection point. And now I do have goals that are bigger than ever, right? I want to be making, and I'm going to be making 6 figures a month when it's 2028, right? And that'll be something I actually document as well. And that takes us to this final point. And it really is, so what? Right? You've gotten level of results, you went through the program and stuff like that. If I had to leave you with some core messages here, based on my actual story of coming in and probably being in the same position as you, if you're the type of person that actually clicked on this video, there's these 3 things here. If I was to be honest with you, they could all even fall under one core message, right? And it could fall under this first one, is that this belief that iman gadzhis is a scam, or any course out there is a scam. If you ever hear somebody say that, the chances are they aren't where they want to be, right? And I wouldn't take advice from somebody that I wouldn't want to be like. And this is going to come from the lens of taking massive accountability and responsibility. So if you ever join a course or a program, realize, of course, there'll be things that can always be improved, but ultimately you have that responsibility within yourself to make it work, right? Because nobody honestly is coming to save you. And I'm sure you probably heard that before as well. But every single day that you may have this belief that a course is a scam, you are consciously making the decision to be closed-minded and stay into the same exact position where you are right now, right? Which, God forbid, is not really where you want to be. Even following to like the second one, funny enough, what even allowed me to get to the point where I am right now, which is, traveling the world, like I said, making money and do all these different things, is by the people I actually met inside of that course, inside of that program. Guys like JJ, Cole, Scott, these guys who've become my mentors and really lifelong friends who I've been able to meet in person, get really close to, talk to every single day now, and really create this future for me, right? You are, who you surround yourself with, which obviously I'm sure you've heard that if you're watching this video, but really being able to solidify that and actually feel what that means rather than just seeing it. Because all of my closest friends now, this is not an ego thing as well to flex or anything like that, but all of my friends make significantly more money than me. And that has been a catalyst of what's actually been able to help me break out of this cycle that I'm speaking about and help me actually forge my growth. And then the final thing here, it does say that level of pain is going to trigger growth, right? And if you're watching this and you do feel like you're in one of those moments where you might feel lost, anxious, you don't know what to do, use the pain that you currently are feeling right now internally as fuel to get you to where you want to be. And sometimes it will take a sign, right? Like for me, it was that message I had from Dylan, which was my coach. And for you, it could be this video. So have a realization of every single day that you decide to not become the person that you envision yourself to be and not step into that identity, you are actively choosing to continue to suffer. If you want to watch the journey of me actually documenting the road to my success, to making 6 figures a month, to actually traveling the world and actually enjoying the process, go ahead and subscribe. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.